Let's just ping pong real quick here. Auburn barely getting by Georgia. Just we've done this segment like 3 times this season, but I want to do it real quick again. Go and I say this completely well-intentioned as your friend, but I want to, for the audience's sake, justify keeping Auburn at number 1 and not Gonzaga after the way that Auburn has played as of late, and Gonzaga is just destroying teams.
Same argument I made before. Auburn is the only team in the country that hasn't lost in regulation. They haven't lost since before Thanksgiving. They've got big wins, including one over Kentucky. They have beaten the Alabama team that Gonzaga lost to. Gonzaga is obviously impressive, overwhelming on a neutral court. Would probably be favored over Auburn. Would definitely be favored over Auburn. But I'm going to do it on resume at this point in the season, and Auburn's got the best resume in the country.
Fair enough. Just wanted to at least address that and bring it up because Gonzaga BYU is one of a few teams in the middle of a free fall right now, including the likes of West Virginia, now officially a very concerned bubble team. And I don't know if LSU is a bubble team yet, but Seth Davis tweeted the bottom has come out. It has absolutely come out. LSU got taken out at Vanderbilt, and Will Wade's team is spiraling, to say the least. UCLA did not get out of Arizona with a win, just to note. We talked about it on the previous pod, obviously, but just to keep track on all this stuff. Bruins went and lost at Arizona, and then that was a rough one at Arizona State. And that was one where I was obviously watching the game, doing a little hoop watching there, and Gonzaga was destroying BYU, and then I do enjoy myself some Winter Olympics and kind of keeping an eye on that. And then this game is like going overtime and overtime and overtime. And I'm getting tired. I'm like, I have to watch the end of this disaster here. Bobby Hurley, you know what? Good job, man. You get a win. You're having a bad season with that program. It's just a rough go of it. These are the wins that were like, you just kind of soak up as much as you possibly can. I don't really have much from Kentucky, Alabama. We've talked about Alabama plenty. Talked about Kentucky. Kentucky went in, got another really good win. Oscar Tshiebwe, still my National Player of the Year. We talked about him on Friday. I'd still have him as an arrow front runner at this point. Let's really quickly talk about how impressive Kansas has been and why we are both not concerned with Baylor. You and I both agreed when we talked earlier in this episode, we still would consider Baylor. We can envision this team getting it together to win a national championship. They wouldn't be our first, second, or third pick, but I'm not going to sell my Baylor stock. It was not fully healthy. Still no LJ Cryer. And this was one of those games, man. Like, there was a pass. I think it was Jalen Wilson made this pass to save the ball and dished it out for a 3, and Kansas cashed it. I've had a couple of coaches tell me kind of playfully over the years, it's basically been something along the lines of, there are certain nights when if you're an opponent in that building, like, the basketball gods are not letting you win. It is out of your hands. And these sentiments have not been expressed with any kind of cynicism. It's like, legitimately, Allen Fieldhouse has a certain juju to it with that program where,
I don't know about that. Here's what I think is true. And Fran Fraschilla touched on this during the broadcast when Scott Drew flipped out.
He did. Last time you saw Scott Drew that pissed.
I don't think I've ever seen Scott Drew that pissed. Yeah.
Ever. Yeah.
Did he cuss at all?
I don't know.
I was looking for it. It looked like he was, from the best I could tell, he would say that was trash. You know, a different coach would be like, that
was garbage, man.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. That's trash. That was trash. But I couldn't say. I'd never seen Scott like that. And he was clearly, I don't think he was as mad at the charge call. It was a Matthew Meyer charge call, right? And I don't think he was as mad about the call as, like, I got to do something to try to get something, because we're not in this right now and it's not getting any better. So that Fran touched on this a little bit. What I have heard from coaches is that there are certain places you go, and it's not some juju thing, but it's like the refs are actually influenced by the crowd.
I wasn't going to go there, but there's also that as well. Yes.
Yeah. And at Kansas and at Duke, here's what I've had multiple coaches tell me over the years. If you're going to go beat them there, you better be 10 points better than them to beat them by a point. Like, it's not a fair game. And they don't mean anybody's cheating. Nobody's cheating, but it's not a fair game. And if you're going to go, you can't be 1 point better than Kansas at Kansas and beat Kansas, or 1 point better than Duke at Duke and beat Duke. You better be, this is the way it's been put to me, you got to be 10 points better than them to beat them by 1. That's the reality of playing at those places.
Agreed. That has been for sure. But yeah, and I'm not saying I just I remember when I did the story like 6-7 years ago. At that point, Scott Drew had more losses at Fog Allen Fieldhouse than Bill Self, but there had only been 8 teams that had defeated Kansas at Kansas. And so I tracked down every head coach that had ever done it. And a couple of them got to talking about, like, that building, man, there's just something about going in that building. And I thought that play exemplified that ethos. That's all. When Phil Wilson made that pass and then they sunk the 3, it's like, you got no shot, Baylor. And fully acknowledging that Kentucky went in there makes Kentucky all the more impressive, man. Like, they went in there and absolutely destroyed Kansas a week ago. And then Kansas came back, didn't have Abaji, wins at Iowa State with ease, and then comes back home against a Baylor team that now, even though it's struggling, still objectively feels like it should be the second best team. If you want to say Tech, that's cool. I'm good with that. And Baylor's not even in the game. Like, it was just another game on Saturday. Again, great matchup, and it fell flat.
Yeah, as Kansas was handling Baylor no problem, and then later in the night, Kentucky goes to Alabama and really wins no problem. Like, they weren't really threatened too much in the second half. It made me like that combination of things was like, man, how did Kentucky go do what it did? And don't forget, they were up 9 at Auburn when Ty Washington went out. Like, yes, there's a lot of good stuff from the past few weeks that, if you're a Kentucky fan, makes you think maybe we got the best team in the country.
Without a doubt, man. That's what I'm saying. Kentucky, Kansas, Auburn, Duke, Arizona. Go on down the list. Plenty of teams. A lot of fan bases have a lot of optimism right now, and that is collectively a good thing for the sport. Michigan State's lost at Rutgers in blowout fashion 2 consecutive seasons. You and I agree we can't envision this Spartans team cutting down the nets this year, but I thought that was at least worth a mention there. Rutgers, any chance they can actually sneak into this tournament picture? I don't think so. They're way too low, and they've taken too many losses. They're 100th in the net, my man. I just looked this up. They don't have a shot, but they do have. They have like a couple of like huge wins, but there's just too many losses at this point. But they beat Purdue at home. Who could forget that? They beat Michigan State, beaten Iowa. So there's just not enough there. But anyway, good on Rutgers. Get the win. Michigan State.
Like they're not like with Rutgers. They're 5 and 6 in the first 2 quadrants. Like, that's not terrible. That's bubble stuff. But they got 2 quadrant 3 losses, a quadrant 4 loss. That's we can't even talk to you with that.
It's offsetting. It is, but certainly noticed that kind of was scooting under the radar, but not on this podcast. Yes, DePaul winning at Xavier. You know what it is? Seed line knock right there. Xavier's, that's gonna rue a day for sure. And that day was Saturday. Kind of a bizarre one, but you know what? Good on DePaul for getting a win there. That was good stuff for them. You also mentioned, Arkansas getting a win, 8 in a row. Bubble team that got a win. I'd break it down like this in terms of bubble teams. The winners: Arkansas, Wake Forest, beating Florida State. You can call FSU a loser. The Demon Deacons will lead this week's court report on Wednesday, just so you know. Scheduled to talk with Steve Forbes and give the best Wake Forest team in more than a decade some overdue love. Oregon winning at Utah. Ducks are still a bubble team. They got to win. Notre Dame playing itself nicely into the tournament picture. Won 69-57 at NC State. And I thought Florida hanging on an OT at home against Ole Miss GP was highly significant for the Gators. They were down 9 at the half, got Colin Castleton back. He had 17 and 7. That was certainly significant. The losers, outside of, I mentioned LSU, West Virginia, Miami lost at Virginia. Certainly notable. Miami's floating near that cut line. SMU trying to get into the picture, losing by 15 at Wichita State. That's not going to help matters for the Ponies or the American Athletic Conference. TCU kind of quietly lost at home by 12 to K-State. Horned Frogs. Got to dodge that kind of stuff if you're going to try and make your second tournament in 2 decades. Oklahoma now drifting onto the bubble. Has already drifted, but, bubble team supreme. Lost in Bedlam, Oklahoma State. Mike Boynton's team got an important win in a year where they can't get to the postseason. And then Creighton lost to Seton Hall. That's a good bubble win for the Hall. Bad for Creighton.